All right, folks, here we are. It's time for transmission flush, and today we got a couple options. We've got the PXT, which is made by BG. That's the latest and greatest in transmission flush technology. And we have its older brother over here, the PF5. So I'm going to point out some key differences between these two flush machines, and we're going to show you how these things work. It's really a pretty simple process. Just about every shop in town has something similar or these exact same machines. The thing that is a little bit less than ideal with this particular older machine here is you're going to see we have a big tank down here, and inside that tank you've got two bladders. So you've got the two bladders, one is for the new fluid, one is for the old fluid, and you are required to use exactly 16 quarts. Now when you're done with the process, over here you can dispose of that to your oil drain tank and so forth. But if you try to use less than 16 quarts, the bladder will become stuck. And if you're not familiar with that process of to unstick the bladder, you get to call your BG rep and ask their advice, and it's not fun when a customer's waiting for that. So whenever I can, when I have the option, I tend to go to the PXT. With this machine here, it gives you the same option to put the additives in. You put your new ATF here, so you just open these guys up here, and in goes the new fluid. Okay, you don't have to use an additive there with either one of these. This one is similar, but when you go to put the additive in on this one, it utilizes the same chamber. So you really just are going to have to add it on the front side of your service versus being able to dictate exactly when. The best feature, I think, of the PXT machine here is that you can specify a certain number of quarts that you want to put in. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. It's got a button right over here, runs off a 12-volt battery, and as it fires up here, you're going to get to see firsthand what it has to say, and it's going to tell us transmission fluid level. Excuse me, transmission change fluid. And you've got two tanks here, and both of those are apparently empty. So before we can really get moving on the flush, we have to hook up our vehicle today, which we've already done, thanks to some awesome folks helping me out. Over here, you've got all the adapters that you'd ever want. On the PF5, all the adapters that you would ever want are also over here on the side of the PXT. These adapters are designed so that you can tie into a single line. So you don't need to disconnect both transmission cooler lines. And if I can get a little bit of light here, I'm just going to show what we've done so far. What we've done so far is we have disconnected the only line on the top, the transmission cooler line, and we have hooked up in series our transmission flush machine. So I know it's a little dark down there. You're going to see better at the end of the service how we disconnect everything, and you're going to see that there's a little tiny clip that can be your friend or foe depending if you drop it. And that little tiny clip is hiding right over here in the corner, and it can be a difficult one to find if you drop it. It's that little tiny clip there that holds everything in. I'm trying to get another angle here so you can see better. And we're not talking about that upper hose, but that second one down there, where my light is shining right onto. Okay, so let's get back to the service, and realize too, before you start the service, you should know where your transmission fluid level is at. That's something that we're going to go ahead and check now. So if I can get some help firing up the vehicle, and I think we're going to go ahead and check the fluid level. We've got some rags here today to do that with, and we're going to make sure we're starting with the full vehicle, because these exchangers, all they're going to do is go ahead and replenish the same amount of fluid that you have. So if you're low to begin with, you'll be low when you're done, and vice versa. need to add some fluid. Okay, so on the front side of this, to have a good service, we would definitely be adding some fluid. Not good for the transmission, not good for the pump. In fact, this vehicle here really appears to be maybe overdue a bit for service. We do have pressure though. We can see that we're running here around 40, 45. So it's enough to make pressure, but we're going to add some fluid. In fact, we'll just do that through this exchanging process. You're not going to see how much fluid we actually run through it. I'm just going to explain the setup and so forth here today. So you can see that the directional arrow has a flow pointed to the left, and I can change that. Notice what I just did. I changed it from P1 to P2. That changes the direction of flow. So what you don't have to worry about is figuring out which line goes where. When you're hooking them up to your vehicle and you're like, wow, geez, what line should I put on there first? It doesn't matter, because as long as the flow works out okay over here on the flush machine, you're going to be good to go. I apologize about the muffling here. I'm wearing one of these masks today due to the local rules in place. So pressure's good. We're going to go ahead and turn this the right way. So I'm going to turn it back to P2, and you can see that now my little bulb here, where it was wanting this little silver guy here, he was wanting to go to the right, and we want it to go to the left. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start the service. We're going to change it. It wants to know if all the hoses are, hooked up and so forth. So we're going to hit next, start the vehicle. We've already done that. Is the pellet and the glass flowing to the left? And it would instruct us to change it. If it was not, is the transmission level in the vehicle high, low, or full? So we're going to go ahead and tell it it's low. And how low is the transmission fluid? I'm going to give it at least a quart for now. Okay. Because we should have something on the stick. If you were driving a car, by the way, with it that low, you're doing damage. This is a vehicle we keep on the lot. It doesn't go anywhere. Then we use for demonstrations so that you can, kind of see what it's like when there's a problem with this. All right. Exchange amount. So that really depends on how much fluid I want to exchange. That means over here on the new side, I can go all the way up to 16 quarts like our big brother would make you do, or I can put in, I don't know, let's see what the minimum is here. 1 quart. Well, now it's telling that we don't have enough fluid, because if you look down here, we don't have enough fluid. We definitely need to add some to make this happen. Again, I'm really doing this for the purpose of demonstration. We would never drive this car low on fluid. We need more in a tank. So unfortunately, it's not going to let me proceed at this point. Okay, so I could go ahead and add some fluid and move further with the flush, but essentially the machine does the rest. All it's going to say is I flushed 1 quart or 2 quarts or 16, whatever you chose to do. So if we back up here, we're going to be kind of stuck on this screen until we give it some more fluid. Okay, so we're going to pretend for just a minute that we did the full flush. The only thing that we would have seen is the fluid got to be cleaner. You can see this car is due for service. This particular vehicle uses Deck 6 fluid. It's a synthetic fluid. There should be kind of a pink, red color. It's not, obviously. So we're going to take a look closer at the vehicle. And the hardest part, folks, is disconnecting and connecting these hoses. Okay, let's go ahead and shut it off, please. Thank you. And I'm going to stand back here with the lights while my good pal helps me out. And I know this is a tough thing to see. It's tough for me to see, and it's tough for him to see too. So what he's doing right now is he's disconnecting the quick couplings. You can see that hose is coming up. It may drip a little bit of fluid. Just be aware of that. fact, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the pump right now. There's not a reason to really have the machine on at this time. We're going to disconnect that second line. See it? Yeah, that needs a flush all right. That's not pink red fluid. And now as we go back in, okay, we have a line we still have to disconnect. So you can see that line, that is part of the PXT machine. That's one of our adapters that enabled us to hook it up in series. And essentially the time involved to actually do this flush, had we had fluid on hand, would have taken us maybe 2 minutes more. Not a big deal whatsoever. So now we need to find that little tiny clip that we had in there so we can shove the line back in. Oh, he's still in there. If you look, it's in the adapter side of it. So we'll need to get a little screwdriver or something to pop that clip up and out. After that clip comes out, we can go ahead and shove the other line that runs up to the transmission cooler back in. And this is the hardest part. The machine part of it is easy. Getting this little tiny clip out without dropping the clip, without getting the line, you know, at a weird angle, that's the hardest part of it. Now when we're all done, we are going to demonstrate checking for leaks, because I don't want you to forget, on a live service, you want to look for leaks. Every once in a while you'll get where that clip doesn't seat all the way and you think it's in there good, so I like to pull back on the line to ensure it's seated all the way, and it's difficult to do. You can see that that clip is now out. Is the clip laying around there somewhere?
I think it just hit the ground.
Okay, well, this is not abnormal, folks.
There it is.
We found it. Excellent job. I've seen guys look for quite a while to find that clip. That's the magic clip. Without that guy in there properly, you're going to have one heck of a leak. All right, so next we're going to have to go ahead and shove the line back in there. And once we get it in there and we feel good about it, and it's at the right angle, and you kind of wiggle it around and you're happy with the routing of it, then we're going to put that clip back in. And it looks like it's just about ready for that clip now. And that's the main part of this video. If you learn anything, you got to know that clip, how it goes in there, what it does. Take your time. This is not a race, folks. This might take you several minutes, because the more patient you are and the slower you go, I think the better your odds of not dropping it. And it's not uncommon to drop it. As you just saw, we have an expert here today that's done this service several times. And we all, including myself, have dropped that clip before. So next what I like to do is kind of grab that line and pull outward on it just a little bit, just to make sure we feel like that clip is actually in there. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. That's looking good. And then next there's this little plastic grommet that slid down the line just a little bit. That guy is a retainer that's designed to hold that clip in there, just so that nothing could, you know, force it out potentially. Going down the road, you know, I can't imagine you getting anything up that high up on top of the engine, but you never know. It's nice to have that on there. You just push it on the best it goes. Hear that little click? We're in the business there. So now we got to check for leaks. Now, before we return this vehicle to a customer, if we did a live job, you know, we're going to do a really nice job cleaning everything up and everything. But for right now, we need to go ahead and see if we have any leaks. So go ahead and fire it up. And I'll tell you what, that gauge over there said we had, what, 45, 50 PSI? If we had a leak, you would see a lot of fluid everywhere, all over the ground. So we'll pretend for just a minute that we actually added some fluid and did the service. Last but not least is definitely going to be to check the fluid level. Another thing that I like to do in a live service is to run it through the gears. So what that means is, while the fluid exchanger is in progress, if you have an assistant, you're in the vehicle, you're putting it in reverse, drive, neutral, all the lower gears, and letting it hold each gear for a second or two. As you do this, it allows more fluid to move out of the valve body, that you don't want in there as we try to get that nice, fresh, clean fluid into the rest of the transmission. So we're going to go ahead and check the fluid level at this time. And as we know, it's going to be low. But don't forget, when you do this, he's doing absolutely perfect, by the way. You know, we went all the way down in there, we got a read on it, we pulled it all the way back up, and you know, you can see that it's low. It should be right up here if it was nice and warm, and it's not. Okay, so we can't let this vehicle leave our shop like this. Even if we don't do the service today, before it rolls, we're gonna have to add a quart, recheck it, and go from there based on how low this fluid is checking. So I hope that you enjoyed the demonstration today. If I could at least point out that when you are doing the flush, it's imperative that you get the direction correct. You want to have the pellet turning the right way. It's easy to change it if it's the wrong way. The gauge here shows you that you have pressure. If you're not getting pressure, the fluid is low. Some pumps have a hard time getting pressure. The nice thing too about this particular machine is it has its own pump built into it. So it's going to go ahead and pump it if it sees that we have low pressure. You maybe heard that pump running there. Its big brother over here does not offer that ability on the machine that we have, at least. So it depends on the vehicle. Usually GM is pretty good to us. With some of the Chryslers, we've had a couple issues where we got to rev up the engine speed to get the pump where we need it to be to go ahead and get those fluid through the lines. Okay. What is it recommended for this service? Check your owner's manual. It used to be 30,000 in some cases, heavy duty 50,000. Most of the time, we're seeing a lot of vehicles that say we're good for 100 plus. And it depends on your usage. If you're towing vehicles all the time, carrying heavy loads, that's going to change. So thank you to my friends for helping me out. I couldn't have done it without you. I hope you have a great afternoon.